The dawn of June 6, 1944, broke over a restless sea. The horizon tinged with pale light that belied the storm about to hit. Thousands of ships churned the waters of the English Channel, each brimming with men, tanks, artillery, and hope. For some, it was their first time at war. For others, it was the culmination of years of training and anticipation. Ahead lay Normandy, the beaches, cliffs, and hedgerows that had been transformed into one of the most formidable defensive lines in history. Over 156,000 Allied troops would attempt the largest amphibious invasion ever mounted. Facing fierce German resistance, treacherous tides, and deadly obstacles designed to stop them in their tracks. The beaches were codenamed Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword, but for the men who landed there, they were hell itself, sand soaked with blood. Machine gun fire ripping the air, and tanks bogged down in water and mud. Yet D-Day was more than a battle. It was the opening of the Western Front, a turning point that would free Europe from Nazi occupation. It is a story of bravery, ingenuity, sacrifice, and tragedy, a story of ordinary men confronting the extraordinary, and of history being reshaped, one bloody step at a time. The idea of D-Day had been on the minds of Allied commanders for years. Opening a Western Front was critical. The Soviet Union was pressing Germany in the east, and relief was needed in France to split German forces and hasten the end of the war. Yet the stakes were immense. Any miscalculation could result in catastrophic loss. Planning for Operation Overlord was meticulous. Weather reports, tides, moon phases, and German troop placements were studied obsessively. Paratroopers were trained to drop behind enemy lines to disrupt communications and fortifications. Amphibious landings were rehearsed on English beaches, using mock-ups of Normandy's obstacles. General Dwight D. Eisenhower faced the heavy burden of command. He would need to coordinate the largest armada in human history, synchronize infantry, armor, artillery, and air support, and inspire men to take the impossible step onto enemy shores. Interesting fact: deception was key. Operation Fortitude created phantom armies in southeast England, complete with fake tanks, inflatable trucks, and radio traffic, convincing the Germans that the main invasion would strike Pas-de-Calais. Hitler himself was convinced, delaying the movement of reinforcements for crucial days. Before dawn, the invasion began in darkness. Thousands of paratroopers from the U.S. 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions and the British 6th Airborne Division leapt into occupied France. Their mission: seize bridges, destroy artillery, and sow confusion among German defenders. Chaos reigned in the night skies. Navigation errors scattered troops across fields, rivers, and villages far from their objectives. Some landed in swamps, some behind enemy lines, while others were met immediately by German patrols. Yet in the confusion, remarkable acts of bravery occurred. Lieutenant Richard Winters, leading Easy Company of the 506th Regiment, rallied scattered troops and captured strategic points, demonstrating how leadership and adaptability could turn disaster into advantage. A fascinating detail: in the hours before the invasion, gliders silently delivered engineers and heavy weapons to key positions, landing in fields under cover of darkness. Many of these men faced death immediately upon touching ground, but played a decisive role in disabling German defenses and securing the flanks of the landing beaches. At 6:30, the first waves of troops hit the beaches. Utah Beach, manned largely by American forces, faced lighter resistance than expected. Careful planning, favorable terrain, and early parachute operations allowed the Americans to move inland rapidly. Yet even here, men faced obstacles: mines, barbed wire, and treacherous sand that bogged down equipment. Omaha Beach, however, was a different story. German fortifications, cliffs, and hidden machine gun nests turned the landing into a slaughter. Troops struggled to leave the boats under heavy fire, waves of bullets cutting down the first assault teams. Tanks sank in water, and soldiers were pinned down on open sand. Casualties were catastrophic, yet through courage, improvisation, and sheer determination, small units began to gain a foothold. A vivid anecdote: Sergeant John Steele, famously parachuted into the steeple of St. Miraglise hours earlier, had survived and was already helping direct incoming forces. His heroics symbolized the extraordinary individual courage that, combined with coordinated strategy, would turn the tide of the landing. Simultaneously, British and Canadian troops landed on Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches. German defenders were well prepared, but careful planning, naval bombardment, and preliminary airstrikes softened the defenses. At Juno Beach, Canadian troops faced one of the highest casualty rates. Yet their disciplined advance and relentless drive pushed inland faster than expected. A fascinating fact: Canadian forces were responsible for capturing key towns and establishing supply routes that would prove vital for the next phase of the campaign. At Sword Beach, British forces faced heavy fire from bunkers and fortified positions but leveraged specialized tanks, dubbed Hobart's Funnies, to clear obstacles and pave the way for infantry. The combination of innovative technology and courage under fire allowed the Allies to secure crucial points and prepare for inland pushes. By the end of the first day, over 4,000 Allied soldiers were killed, and tens of thousands were wounded. German forces suffered heavy losses too, but their fortifications had exacted a terrible toll. Beaches were littered with debris, destroyed vehicles, and the bodies of men who had given everything to advance the cause of freedom. Personal stories illuminate the human dimension of D-Day. Corporal Joe Smith, a young American soldier, recounted how he dragged wounded comrades to safety while under sniper fire. A Canadian medic described performing surgeries in sand-filled foxholes, improvising with whatever was at hand. These small acts of heroism, often overshadowed by strategy and tactics, were the lifeblood of survival in Normandy. Securing the beaches was only the beginning. Allied forces had to fight their way inland, facing hedgerows, flooded fields, and entrenched German defenders. Normandy's bocage-thick hedgerows and narrow lanes made movement slow and deadly. Every farm and village became a mini-fortress, where defenders could hold out against vastly superior numbers. The fighting was intense and methodical. Infantry units moved house to house, while tanks provided fire support from behind. Air support strafed German positions, but dense terrain limited effectiveness. Engineers cleared mines and obstacles, often at the cost of their lives. The pace was grueling, and progress measured in yards rather than miles. A little-known detail: specialized Hobart's Funnies tanks, including flamethrowers, bridge layers, and mine clearers, played a pivotal role in breaking through hedgerows and fortifications that would have otherwise stalled the advance for weeks. The success of D-Day was not only the courage of individual soldiers, but also the orchestration of massive air and naval support. Over 13,000 aircraft bombed key German positions before and during the landings, disrupting communications and defenses. More than 5,000 ships provided transport, artillery support, and supplies. Naval bombardment was critical, yet precision was difficult. Some targets were missed, and friendly fire incidents occurred, creating additional chaos on the beaches. Despite these challenges, the coordination between air, sea, and land forces was unprecedented, setting a standard for modern combat arms operations. Behind enemy lines, paratroopers continued to perform critical operations. They captured bridges, destroyed artillery, and held key crossroads to prevent German reinforcements from reaching the beaches. In some cases, units found themselves cut off for days, surrounded by enemy forces, and surviving on minimal supplies. Lieutenant Richard Winter's Easy Company, immortalized in accounts of the war, exemplified the improvisation and determination required. Small units adapted to changing circumstances, coordinated with nearby forces, and maintained pressure on the Germans, buying precious time for beach landings to consolidate. Over the following weeks, Allied forces pushed inland, linking the 5 beaches and securing towns, villages, and roads. German counterattacks were fierce, but ultimately unsustainable in the face of overwhelming Allied numbers and resources. Normandy was slowly liberated, opening the path to Paris and further into Western Europe. The strategic impact of D-Day cannot be overstated. By establishing a Western front, the Allies forced Germany to fight a two-front war, weakening defenses across Europe. D-Day marked the beginning of the end for Nazi occupation, and its success hinged on preparation, courage, and the willingness of men to face unimaginable odds. Today, Normandy's beaches are quiet, their sands peaceful, but the memory of D-Day endures. Cemeteries and memorials honor those who fell, while historians study the operation as a masterpiece of planning and bravery. D-Day was a convergence of strategy, technology, and human courage, an event that changed the trajectory of history. Every landing, every paratrooper drop, every life loss contributed to a larger cause: the liberation of Europe and the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany. Personal stories, like Sergeant John Steele's fall into the church steeple at St. Mere Iglis, or the countless medics and engineers who risked everything, remind us that behind statistics lie human lives, hopes, and sacrifices. D-Day remains a testament to what humanity can endure and achieve, even in the darkest hours. It is a story of courage, tragedy, strategy, and victory, a story that reshaped the modern world. The dawn of June 6, 1944, marked more than a military operation. It was the start of a liberation that would sweep across Europe. Ordinary men stormed beaches, scaled cliffs, and defied death to secure a future free from tyranny. The beaches of Normandy tell a story of planning, heroism, and sacrifice, a story whose echoes continue to shape our understanding of courage, resilience, and the cost of freedom. The invasion that freed Europe was forged in blood, sweat, and determination. D-Day was not the end of the war, but it was the moment the tide irrevocably turned. History remembers the soldiers, the planners, and the ordinary men who faced extraordinary odds, their legacy immortalized on the sands of Normandy. And that concludes our journey into this extraordinary moment in history. If you enjoyed exploring the past with me, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss our next deep dive. Now it's your turn. What historical events should we uncover next? Share your ideas in the comments below, and your suggestion might be featured in a future video. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep seeking the stories that shaped our world.